OP was downvoted like crazy in the comments and the post was locked. Do you think this was fair? This is called HOA wants to have adult-only swimming hours, 2 hours in the evening, 4 nights a week, posted by Mean Drunk R2D2. This was something that came up last week after our monthly HOA meeting. This wasn't a well thought out plan as our neighborhood is full of kids and many adults and kids swim in the evening. Some of the adults who either have no kids or the kids are grown and out of the house thought it would be a great idea to go and put in this new rule in a low attendance HOA meeting. The next day, they made the announcement in our neighborhood Facebook group. Now, my kids are younger and no way would they take advantage of swimming from 9 to 11 p.m. today, but I know many other parents with older kids who do. I simply told them that they need to look at the legalities of this rule as it does violate the Fair Housing Act against familial status. Some of the kidless parents started ripping on me that it's not a thing and that I should go ahead and contact a lawyer about it. I did. He said that if I wanted, we could file a case immediately and it would levy a large fine on the HOA as well as damages. I declined, but I passed that information to the HOA in that Facebook group post and that it would be very wise to not put that rule into effect and to contact the HOA lawyers before doing it. Within a couple of hours, the HOA stated that they were going to put the changes on hold while they contact their lawyers. 2 days later, they made a new post basically stating that I was right and that the change would not be able to take effect due to the FHA. I make sure that my kids are extra loud when I see those annoying people, not really, they're just loud all the time, at that pool since that happened, and they just glare at me, mad that I took away their adult time at the pool. So Ahmad said, this derailed quickly, locked, any more personal attacks will get you banned, and this was a sticky post. This commenter says, my condo has an adult swim time. I see nothing abnormal about setting aside some time for adults to swim in a peaceful setting. A neighborhood HOA across from me that allows surrounding neighborhoods like mine to pay to use their pool also has this. It's so they can put the lanes in and allow the adults to do laps. Kinda hard to get exercise and do laps when it's open swim and kids are all over the place. Sounds like the board was trying to do a good thing and OP just had to ruin it. Then the board can put lanes in for those times. That's not discriminatory. An OP with nearly 1,000 downvotes replies, this isn't for lap time or anything more than allowing adults to gather at the pool to drink and not really be mindful with language around kids. I didn't ruin anything, but let the HOA know about the legalities. In a few years, I'll be taking my kids out for night swims there. Negative 973 votes in 1 day. So this person says, OP didn't write the Fair Housing Act. They're just smart enough to know what it means. They did the community a favor by bringing it to their attention before an overzealous attorney for someone else did. Nowhere did OP threaten to sue if they went ahead with this plan. They just simply suggested, wisely, that they consult with their own attorneys before doing so. And OP replies, exactly, I wasn't gonna sue. I let them know that it opens up the HOA to a major lawsuit that they will lose. I do have a lawyer and he agreed with me that it wasn't a smart decision and the HOA did reach out to their lawyers to see that it was illegal. These commenters hold nothing back. They say, never thought I'd see the day where I agreed with the HOA, but here we are. This person sounds worse than the HOA. Imagine hiring a lawyer to prevent adult swim time for a couple hours a day, at a time when no kids would be there anyway. Can you imagine how entitled OP must be? So much so that they verified the thing the HOA was intending to do was illegal. Sarcasm. I was on our HOA board for over 10 years. Do your homework. If you don't know the law, ask your lawyers. That's why you have them, to prevent you from doing things that come back to bite you. Do you think that OP did a dirty thing like some of the commenters are accusing, or do you agree with the OP? I think it's fine to have adults having their own time at the pool to swim. You know, they're not doing anything bad, just hanging out, maybe drinking a beer and just chilling at the pool from 9 to 11 when most kids are in bed anyway. HOA Peeping Tom by Tam Tam Lee. So, this just happened tonight. We've had this weirdo from the HOA who walks by our house on a private road at like midnight, located in a rural mountain region, and sometimes stands at the driveway, and other times flashes our security cameras with a flashlight at night. Tonight, I was dropping bags of soil from the back of my car at 9:50 p.m. at the foot of my driveway where I need to reinforce the soil there. I was turning around to head back to the house to get another bag, and I heard a twig snap right behind me. There was a man standing at the foot of my driveway with no light. I think I gasped or something, and I ran back into my house as my family members were on the porch. I said to my family member loudly, "I told you to help me with the lantern at the road. There is this weird man standing there in the dark." He heard me say this and stood at the foot of the driveway yelling, "Can I help you? What's wrong? You need a hand with something?" He kept repeating this, and I recognized him as one of the HOA butts who has been involved in harassment against us. He wasn't moving and kept repeating, "Can I help you? What's wrong?" My family member then walked to the end of the driveway and stood there in the light. She just stared him down. I joined my family member at the foot of our driveway with a lantern. He then referenced the HOA, saying basically, "You're the people the HOA doesn't like." I said to him that I find it weird that he is hanging out at the foot of my driveway in the pitch dark without a light. He said, "It's called night vision." And I said, "Yeah, more like Peeping Tom." He then left. So do you think this is creepy? I don't think I can really do anything about it, but I'm pretty sure he was peeping on us in the dark because he was like right there on the road and I never saw him. My family member wanted to report it to the police, but he's just going to say that he was walking around at night. I find it super creepy he's using night vision, which he could use to look into people's houses at night. Commenter asked OP a great question and he replies, "Get security cameras and light this dude up. This is targeted harassment." And OP says, "Well, I actually have cameras. I think I have to look into some better ones though, since they only record in 30-second intervals and they skip some action between intervals. I have faced a lot of harassment from the HOA, and I personally know this is targeted." He even mentioned the HOA and our dispute with them, so he clearly knows who we are. I honestly don't think the police would do anything about one incident, but I've been collecting videos of him acting strangely, and eventually I think they will paint a picture of targeted harassment. The commenter replied, "Ring records sound as well. Place one well to capture his normal activities and save the videos every time. It establishes a pattern that gives you foundation for legal action. A well-placed battery-powered one should work well and captures night vision too. Find a nice tree to screw it into so that it can capture sound and confront the jerk every time. That way, you can capture him talking about the HOA, which gives you foundation to sue him individually and the HOA as its representative. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I've read and had advice on in the past." And OP says, "I think I'm going to try several different camera types as you say. I currently have a blue ADT. I actually, fortunately, got him on audio on this incident mentioning the HOA, and that was very clear in the video. Unfortunately, since blue only captures in 30-second incidents, it skips some of the incident, but it got a lot of it. In my opinion, he looks pretty strange, since for some of this, he is like standing in the dark at the foot of the entrance, calling out, 'Can I help you?' again and again. But definitely going to look into installing some additional cameras." Dear Reddit, my neighborhood is creating an HOA. Can I fight this? Posted by Beer Me the Strength. My husband and I moved into the neighborhood almost 3 years ago. There was a rumor going around then that an HOA might start up at some point. But at that point, the neighborhood had been established for like 10 or 15 years, and it wasn't likely that it would happen anytime soon. So we moved into this neighborhood partly to get out of an overly restrictive HOA, so we weren't too keen on the idea anyway. But obviously, we knew we were taking a risk. Fast forward to this past Saturday. We get a packet in the mail from a local law firm that includes the covenants of the HOA. It's poorly written and vague, but a letter accompanying the covenants says that there will be a meeting to elect the HOA board next week. Some of the problems I have with the covenants. So first off, an approval committee has already been created, comprised of members of the law firm sending the covenants. Seems sketchy. Next up, the approval committee must okay any change to the exterior of a house and the acreage around that house, ranging from things like construction of additions, sheds, fences, and dog houses, to restricting the colors and materials of construction. That includes fences which are limited to white or hunter green. Our neighbors who just put up a black fence spanning their 2-acre property are gonna be ticked for sure. So there's a vague statement about new construction and plans that must be submitted to the committee and approved with a $1,000 fee. Under that, types of plans for approval include sheds and fences and so on, but also the doghouses. $1,000, $1,000 to put up a doghouse seems a little nuts to me. The covenants say that satellite dishes may only be placed on top of homes, not in the yard. We've had our dish in our yard since we moved in, because there are trees directly beside our house that would block a signal if it were to be placed on the house. Well, I also know that the HOA cannot determine where a dish is placed due to the Telecommunications Act of 1996, so this is one indication of abuse of power by the approval committee. Now we are required to pay $200 to the HOA yearly to landscape the neighborhood. The only areas to landscape include a row of trees at the entrance and 2 ponds that must be mowed. There are over 200 homes in our neighborhood required to pay this fee. I'm not really sure what the benefit of the HOA would be, and I plan to attend the meeting and run for the board if it's forced on us. But is there anything I can do to stop this, or at least help limit the power? I can't imagine that my neighbors are happy about this, and I plan on talking with a few folks before attending the meeting next week. Any other ideas? So we live in Virginia, and I'm not sure what the laws are in our state, but I'm looking into it. Found this site which should help get me started, which is HOA Virginia State Laws. So I checked the deed and purchase agreement when I got home, and there's nothing about a HOA or POA in the deed. The purchase agreement says that this property is not located within a development that is subject to the VA Property Owners Act. I've contacted a friend's mom who is a real estate lawyer in DC. She gave me some info about collection records from the attorney who is pushing this thing, and I faxed the law group a letter yesterday asking for them to fax me copies of any and all documents related to the proposed HOA. Our neighbors are meeting this weekend to discuss, and the HOA meeting is on Monday. I wish we had an update from OP, but I hope it all went well. Am I just overreacting? Posted by Queen of Samain. I've been living in a duplex with my husband and mother for a few years now. For the past 3 years or so, the neighbor in the next unit has been disrespectful toward us. All because she believes we are Hispanic, even though we have said that we are Italian. I mean, even if we were Hispanic, it doesn't give you the right to be disrespectful. She's also verbally harassed my landlord. She never pays her rent on time, doesn't answer the landlord's messages. I know this because my landlord has told me, yet her lease keeps getting renewed. She cursed at me once for leaving my car in the end of the driveway to unload groceries so I can bring them from the front. I had to call the cops on her once over a stupid incident that I apologized for profusely, and when my mother spoke to her, mentioned my late brother had passed away recently, she said she didn't give an F that he died. I can't even park my car in the driveway during the winter as she takes up the entire space and doesn't move back much closer to the garage that the landlord gave her permission to use. Even though we were the first tenants, so I have been on edge every winter night when the ban takes place, worrying if I'll get ticketed. I understand children are children, but now that they're home for the summer, they're in and out numerous times of the day. Not that it's a problem, but it is a problem when they slam the doors so hard to go out and in from the front that our walls rattle and sometimes makes the stuff that we have on them fall. Not once have I heard her scold them at all. She lets them out until 9 p.m. at night, not even checking on where they are. They are at least 5 and 7 years old. It's just a huge mess. I was wondering if I'm being overreacting, or do I have the right to be upset that our living situation is terrible with these people? Next year, we're planning on moving out, but for now, we're just stuck here. This commenter asks OP and gets an answer. Yes, move as soon as you can. Be sure to tell the landlord that the fact that the neighbor's allowed to continue harassing and bothering you is the reason you will not renew your lease. OP replies, we're staying here for 1 more year as our lease was renewed a couple of months ago, But a few months before it's up, we're finding a new place to stay and then to just do that. She once told me she wouldn't renew their lease due to other issues, but since she is more concerned about losing any income, she keeps renewing theirs. Would you file a police report if neighbors stole your package? Posted by 888Christy. Basically the title. See, I've been trying to pick and choose my battles because I learned issues with neighbors usually escalate quickly, considering people can't take any criticism or they're on drugs around here. I know my meth head neighbors stole my package because I ordered very distinct beach pattern couch covers that were delivered on June the 30th. I couldn't find my package anywhere. Well, I thought about texting the landlord to check the cameras for June the 30th, but I never did. And then today, as I'm walking to my car, my neighbor's windows has one of the blinds open for once, and my distinct covers are over the bed in the room. I also don't like that these neighbors have my full real name now from the stolen package. These neighbors are the definition of meth heads, with cardboard in front of their front windows. This was a ground level side window that I have to pass to get to my car, and I decided to not knock on the door mad because I heard this man screaming at his wife before, and he looks like he's 50 and always high and drunk. He never has a shirt on, pants sagging with half of his butt out, and is just gross to be near in general. The craziest part is, this apartment building is 10 feet from campus dorms and basically on my college campus. But due to the decrease of enrollment in the last 2 or 3 years, landlords have been renting student housing to literally anyone. Would the police charge them just based off the pictures of the covers through their window? They could also pull up the camera from June 30th. There's video in the mailroom and facing my door. The landlord said he's working on getting it. He also called that neighbor to pretend that he had to look at an old fireplace in there, and the neighbor answered the landlord's call. "Who the frick is this? What the frick do you want?" And my landlord said he saw both covers when he went in there and said that he liked them and asked where I got it. Nightmare HOA stories. Whiskey Isn't Enough says, "Oh boy, do I have a good one." Obligatory not me, but my best friend. My best friend, S, grew up in suburban Arizona. His family owned their home and rarely had problems with their HOA other than it being generally fascist. It all started with some cardboard boxes. S and his sister, at the ripe age of around 6 or 7, wanted to make a fort in their front yard, and their dad, being the great guy that he was, helped them build a crappy cardboard box fort for them to play in. Being kids, they played in the fort for a couple of hours and proceeded to get distracted playing elsewhere. Not a day later, they received posted notices on the door and phone calls informing them that they need to clean the unsightly garbage out of their yard or be faced with fines. It wasn't a huge deal, but they left the family a bit jaded towards the HOA. Fast forward a handful of years later, S's dad decides that he wants to paint the house. Now, if you don't know, most HOAs have strict rules on the color and send templates for you to pick off of. He said that the templates ranged from tan to slightly different tan. S's dad finds a color that he likes that's more of a greenish tan and sends it, paints the whole house. The HOA proceeds to have a meltdown because they painted their house outside of the allowed color spectrum. S's dad said, "No frickin' way, it's basically the same color. I'm not repainting my entire house." So the HOA hires a contractor to come down with a paint color tester and post notices on their door with a detailed analysis of how his color is yucca tan and it doesn't fit the spectrum, and if they don't repaint it by the end of the month, they will be fined. Instead of folding, S's mom finds out when the next meeting is and discovers that no one votes. The same dude has been president of the HOA for way too long, and there is some shady crap going on in terms of contracting. So she walks around the neighborhood the next few weeks campaigning and runs. She wins by a landslide. It was the largest turnout for an HOA meeting since its inception. Apparently, everyone was also sick and tired of the bullcrap, but they just bent over. So, S's mom is elected president and discovers that the previous regime was doing the old hook up my son-in-law by contracting his company and pay him stupid amounts of money to water the sandwash bullcrap. She quickly ends all that crap. Rather than change any rules other than a few stupid ones, the S family office just decided to refuse to enforce any of them. S's mom goes years as president. Recently, she decided screw it and didn't show up to the election, and someone else got elected. Now the new guy is trying to enforce the old rules, but everyone is so used to the freedom there's a frickin' war going on. I Run Farther says, my old HOA was going through that around the time that I moved in. I was a new homeowner and rather young. My neighbors were all 50 plus, and my wife and I were in our mid-20s. I loved my neighborhood because it was so quiet. So I decided to take an interest in my local community, so I went to the HOA meeting. 3 guys showed up about 45 minutes late. I waited around since the firefighters at the station that we used said they were always late. They said, great, if we can get 3 more people here, we can vote to end the HOA. It caught me off guard. I guess from the very beginning, the HOA had been trying to dissolve itself, but didn't have enough members to show up to take an actual vote. By the time I sold my house 8 years later, they still existed, but hadn't had a dues payment in 6 years from any of the households on the street, to include the HOA board members. Rax Dominus says, other way around, my mom was the president of the HOA for her backwoods little neighborhood. Maybe 30 people lived there. Everyone used one well. The well had a problem once, so no one had water. It was $800 for a temporary fix or $2,000 for a permanent fix. My mom had a meeting where out of the 30 people, 5 showed up. No big deal, those 5 people funded the $800 to get it fixed since they've been without water for almost a week. No one would split the cost and the dues were so low that it didn't cover them, so those 5 people paid for everyone's well. Well, in preparation for the actual fix, she tried to raise money, but only got halfway there when it broke. My mom went door to door asking for everyone's share before they'd fix it. It was like $50. It was another week without water. No one would pay for the well that they all used. Finally, around half of the neighborhood raised the money to fix it. Later, they all had a giant barbecue at my parents' house, but the people who didn't pay weren't invited. 11 Ghost says, like 2 days before I bought a condo, I was told that I would be blocked from moving in unless I paid the first month of HOA dues. So the morning of the closing, I went to the management company's office and dropped off a check. I moved in without issue and then continued to pay my dues on time each month. Like 4 years later, I got an invoice for $800+. Apparently, they never cashed that first check. So when I paid the next month, they credited it toward my first month and assessed a late fee. This continued for 4 years, where every month's check was credited to the previous month. I got in a huge argument with the accounting office, and they wouldn't budge on the $800+ in late fees. I was irate. Richard fell off, posted, "It didn't happen to me, but the city I grew up in was briefly in national news because the HOA was trying to force an elderly couple to give up their only grandchild for adoption after her parents were killed in a traffic accident. The little girl had no other living family and had watched her parents die, but the HOA wanted her gone because it was a retirement community and told them to give her up or be homeless. The HOA puts a lien on my house and everybody else's too, but we're not in the HOA. Click the video on your screen, you don't want to miss a crazy fallout, and I'll see you there."